Yeah, bless the Lord, O my soul. Hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. Shekinah glory. Only you deserve my praise and adoration. That's the reason why I offer you my praise. Yeah, let's go. Who is he that speak and it come to pass? Almighty. Who is he that speak and it come to pass? Almighty Jehovah, Almighty, you are the Almighty, Almighty God, you are the only one that speak it come to pass. Yeah, Jehovah, you are the only one that speak it come to pass. Almighty, Almighty God, you are the only one that speak and it came to pass. Almighty, your word never go void. Almighty Jehovah, you are the Alpha and Omega. Almighty, only you are the one that speak and it come to pass. Almighty, everlasting Almighty, 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 Jehovah Almighty, who is that speak and it come to pass. Almighty, Jehovah, you're the only one that speak and it came to pass. Almighty, you're the only one that speak and it come to pass. Almighty, your word is almighty. Your word is almighty. Jehovah Almighty, you are the Almighty. Almighty, eternal Almighty, the rock of Almighty. Yeah. Who is the only one that speak and it came to pass. Almighty, Jehovah Almighty, you are the Almighty, everlasting Almighty. You are the Almighty. Almighty God, you are the only one that speak and it came to pass. Almighty, Jehovah Almighty, you are the Almighty. Yeah, you are the only one that speak and it come to pass. Almighty, the Lord, you are the only one that speak and it come to pass. Almighty, your word never go void. Almighty, that's the reason you are the Almighty. Yeah, you are the only one that speak and it come to pass. Almighty, everlasting Father, you are the only one that speak and it come to pass. Almighty, your word is Almighty. Jehovah Almighty, you are the Almighty. Yeah, you are the only one that speak and it come to pass. Almighty, Jehovah, you're the only one that speak and it come to pass. Almighty, you're the only one that speak and it come to pass. Almighty, your word is almighty. You are the Almighty, invisible God. You're the only one that speak and it come to pass. Almighty, all power belongs to you, Jehovah. Almighty, Jehovah Almighty. You are the Almighty, eternal Almighty, the rock of Almighty. Jehovah, you're the only one that speak and it come to pass. Almighty, Jehovah Almighty. Yeah. Jehovah, your mighty power supersedes every other power. Almighty. Your mighty power supersedes every other power. Almighty. Jehovah Almighty. You are the Almighty. Almighty, eternal Almighty, the rock of ages. You're the only one that speak and it come to pass. Almighty. Jehovah, you're the only one that speak and it come to pass. Almighty. All power belongs to you, both in heaven and on earth. Almighty. You're the only one that speak and it come to pass. Almighty. Your word is one for all. Almighty Jehovah, you are the only one that speak and it come to pass. Almighty, the word tremble with your voice. Almighty, by the sound of your name, Jehovah, every knee must bow. Almighty, eternal Almighty, the rock of Almighty. You are the only one that speak and it come to pass. Almighty, Jehovah Almighty, Jehovah Almighty, Jehovah Almighty. Almighty, you're the only one that speak and it come to pass. Almighty, Jehovah, you never let us go astray. Almighty, Jehovah, you correct us even when we are going wrong. Almighty, Jehovah, you correct your children. Almighty, you are the only one that speak and it come to pass. Almighty, that's the reason we are here to worship you. Almighty, Jehovah Almighty, eternal Almighty, Jehovah Almighty. Almighty God, you are the only one that speak and it come to pass. Almighty. Almighty God, you are the only one that speak and it come to pass. Almighty, your word never go void. Almighty, Jehovah Almighty, eternal Almighty, Jehovah Almighty. Almighty, Almighty God, you deserve all the glory and adoration in this nation. Yeah, the glory and adoration belongs to you. Almighty Lord, you are the only one that speak and it come to pass. Almighty, the eternal Almighty, the rock of Almighty. Almighty, I call you Almighty. Almighty, your name is Almighty. Almighty God, you're the only one that speak and it come to pass. Almighty, you're the only one that speak and it come to pass. Almighty, yeah, come on. Hallowed be the name, the kingdom come. Jehovah, you're the one that deserve my praise and adoration. That's the reason why I'll never relent. I'll always be by your side forever and ever. Only you deserve my praise. Yeah, come on. Peace out.